Hey guys, Dylan from the Geek Duo here, and today I'll be bringing you my reaction to Shadowhunters Season 4, Episode 12, or 322, the finale of the show, titled All Good Things. The Allies confront Lilith at her most powerful while back in The Allies confront Lilith at her most powerful while back on Earth. Jonathan plots a devastating attack on all the Shadowhunter institutes. I feel like the punctuation of that sentence is wrong. Because it just... The first time you read it, it's like, the Allies confront Lilith at her most powerful while back on Earth. That's not... No, she's at her most powerful in Edom. The back on Earth stuff is related to Jonathan, so there should have been the comma before that. So, I really don't know where this is going to go. Like, as I've said, the last couple episodes, they have pulled a surprising amount from the books. So I have a feeling that the ultimate ending of this is going to play out similar, at least. And yeah, so I'm assuming it's going to play out the way I think it does. But there's also so much, because Lilith is not a player in the final battle. She shows up briefly in Book 5 to grant Jonathan a boon and try to be revived. That he fails at reviving her because of the whole Battle of the Burren. And then that's the last we see of her. So, yeah, her being here is completely throwing everything off. And I don't know if it's going to take away from the ultimate Jonathan being the main bad of this final battle. I guess we'll find out in the episode. Let's get started in 3, 2, 1, go. Oh, we're just getting right into it. She's gonna know that, at least... Or is this a flashback? No. Well, that didn't really work. Why did you lead with that? Here's the question. If Melion dies, what does that do with Jace's alliance rune? The problem with only being able to tell the truth. Hmm. You can't exactly use demonic magic to. Okay. Um. Definitely not what I was expecting there. In the book, Clary actually put a rune on Heophorus, which is the first rune that she was ever shown by the angel. And then when Jace was being consumed by heavenly fire in Edom, she actually got him to hold the sword, and the sword um, absorbed all the fire. And so they went into the final battle against Sebastian with him thinking Jace still had the fire inside him. Whereas they secretly had a weapon that they could use against him. Yeah, what happens if you bring heavenly fire to a. If the realm's destroyed. Well, you banished your father and destroyed his realm. That's a good job, Magnus. Hmm, interesting. Because Edom is still utilized in. No, no, it's not. Never mind. I know you just escaped what is essentially hell, but don't you have bigger problems to focus on than. Then again, book 6 was the first time we got a sex scene in the story, so. Oh, yeah. The books do have as close to PG as a sex scene can be. And then the sequel has at least 7. The prequel has 1. I don't think the second prequel does, to my um, memory. I knew she was gonna. Fun fact, I got pretty much the exact same compliment. Are you actually handwriting wedding invites? Oh yeah, I don't remember if I've mentioned this before, but in the prequel, the first one, we actually meet the namesake of Alec's middle name, Gideon Lightwood. I forget what Isabel's middle name is. Sophia. We actually meet Sophie. I forget if it's Gideon or Gabriel that marries Sophie. I always mix the brothers up. I will say their relationship is a lot healthier than their original counterparts at this point of the story. I wonder if this is where she's going to find out that Luke is now a Shadowhunter again. I guess. And that could be used for the point I brought up earlier. Oh, good, they did still have this. Yeah, well, considering Ash is actually the one who had the wings in the sequel series. Then again, this is actually more toxic than the original counterpart because, like, sure, they knew that the other was very likely to stab them in the back. There was some mutual respect. You think he wouldn't hurt a child? Okay, just cremated the silly queen. Right. The Sujanet. Sujan. What? Hmm. Well, that is very interesting. Okay. I don't mind that. Yeah. Follow the wisp, Clary. Are they all gonna be able to see it, or is it just her? Because at the moment, I don't know whether they all took a part of the heavenly fire into themselves or they completely dissipated all of the heavenly fire. Okay. Why are they bringing Jocelyn back? Also, how are they bringing Jocelyn back? Like, that seemed angelic in nature, but... Okay, the angels can send... This is in relation to alliance. Interesting. Because the runes that Clary draws are not new runes. They are the language of the angels still. Because there are more runes in the Grey Book than Shadowhunters learn, and that is only a fraction of. And every rune she draws is sent to her specifically, like intentionally. So she's not creating. She's just learning more of the language than any normal Shadowhunter can. You know, you're only meant to get a slice for the tastings. Hmm. Okay. They really are wrapping everything up. How is this going to go now that Luke is a Shadowhunter again? Because Shadowhunters who marry mundanes are, that can't go through Ascension are exiled from the Clave so as to not expose the Shadow World. So, does she get the exception because she already knows of the Shadow World? They're also bringing everyone back for the finale. Okay. Not many shows do that. Even when it would make sense to. And we're going to LA. Okay. Are we really getting this in the final episode? I thought that was going to be Julian. This is meant to be run by the Blackthorns. Because remember a couple episodes when I said the children had to be emergency sent from LA to Idris? It was because Jonathan attacked the Institute. Sebastian. I forget which of the. I think it was Julian who hit him with the knife as well. So Max really is taking his. Which means Robert's going to be Andrew. Or are they going to do a plot point that they didn't do from the first arc again? everyone but us. Hmm. No one's questioning that he literally just flew? He can't be killed by any weapon forged by man. Hmm. He knows that something's up. Great job, guys. I heard you in my dreams. Hmm. I thought the thumbnail for this episode was going to be from at the end. Because there's the fact that Sebastian's hair never turned white until after he'd been hit by Heosaurus. She needed her power for one more rune, and that was it. And this is why he went by Sebastian afterwards, so that Clary and Jocelyn could mourn the boy with white hair and green eyes, who was named Jonathan. Because once he got consumed by the heavenly fire, his hair turned white and his eyes green. So that's what they meant by take away the power. She's a mundane again. You got Matsias. Then they got Zachariah to be the officiate. I thought he saved his talking for, like, Magnus specifically. here's the thing. Considering they killed Jocelyn so early when she was meant to survive the whole thing. It really is surprising how many characters that died in the book actually survived. Because it is. There goes another one. Underhill Lorenzo, eh? Okay. I mean, you received no forgiveness from the angel. No one would love me? Ah, close enough. You know, when they said that the angels would take away her gift, I thought that was the ability to see new runes. I didn't think it was going to be ending her up as a mundane. Oh, there. And there goes the last one. Wait, what was I said? One year later. Okay. Alec as the Inquisitor. That's. Yeah. Hmm. Interesting. Magnus, what are you wearing? How do you have variety? How do you have different varieties of blood other than blood types. Hmm. Ah, so you two did still end up together, did you? It was just you just being friendly. Because yeah, Bat and Maya got back together at the end of the Mortal Instruments. Who is his trainer? It's Jace, isn't it? Yeah, that's fair. Even with your ramp speed. Referring to angels as spiteful. Yep, that does sound like the angels of this. Praying to them doesn't really do anything. They're not exactly fond of humans, even though they're mandated to protect them. Do you see him? Hmm. Okay. So, there were a lot of beats. I'm assuming this is the end. There were a lot of beats that mirrored the books. They weren't one to one, as with a lot of things. Okay. So, overall, I will say this series is a lot better than I was expecting. Like, I'd heard that season 1 was pretty good from my dad. Season 2 got weird, and then it just kept going downhill from there. And, well, I will say that season 2 is where it deviated the most from the source material. It's definitely wasn't anywhere near as bad as he was making it out to be. Now, this final season, you can tell that they wanted to do more. Like, there was at least one more season they could have done. Which is why I believe it's season 3 had 10 episodes, 4 had 12, whereas season 2 had 20. Like, they could have expanded on season 3, like how season 2 was book 2 and book 3. They could have turned season 3 into book 4 and book 5. Or they could have done season 4 as book 5 and book 6. Like, you can feel that they wanted to do more. And, like, because they were picking up so many things from the book in this final season, like, so much of it is related to the actual plot points. Like, obviously, because they only had really 3 episodes for the final book, they couldn't do everything that they wanted to. They did a lot, including they brought as much of a major through line of the entire final book into this as they could have. It even started that through line in the same way, with a sudden cut to the LA Institute. So, I didn't think I was going to be talking about this. The Battle of the Burren, that I've mentioned a couple times in what was related to the episodes. The reason that Sebastian, Jace, and Clary were there was because when they went to go see the demon in Amsterdam, I think it was. Yeah, when they went to go see the demon of the antique shop, they were there to get a chunk of raw Adamus. They then, when they were in Paris, I think it was, Jace was sent out on mission to see Sister Magdalena to get the Adamus refined into a new mortal cup. And when he went to retrieve it, he was also ordered to kill her. She managed to slash open his rune with her one of her Iron Sister blades, which broke him out of the rune's control, because if you destroy a rune, it nullifies the effects. He goes back to the apartment, finds Clary, reveals that he's out of control and everything, and he wants to turn himself into the Clave, because he's still linked to Sebastian, and he knows that if he turns himself into the Clave, they'll kill him in order to kill Sebastian. Clary is like, no, I'm not letting you do this. She even calls Sebastian down out of his bedroom and says Jace is free, so that Sebastian can put an Arazzi on him to heal up the cut through the rune and put him back under mind control, just so that Jace wouldn't go through with turning himself in to kill himself. And they then take the new cup that they had to the Burren. And the reason that Lilith is there is because they want to do the opposite of what Raziel did. Where instead of angelic blood into Adamus to mix with human to create the Shadowhunters, they want to use Lilith's blood, which was used to create Jonathan, to create an army of dark Shadowhunters. That's how Book 5 ends, with that final battle. Book 6 picks up with Jonathan going institute by institute with an army of Endarkened. His second in command is actually Luke's sister Amatus, who did not appear in this show at all. And we pick up the Book 6 with his attack on the LA Institute from the perspective of Emma. She's being dropped off by her parents while they go on mission so she can train with the Blackthorn kids. They're training. Mark hears commotion downstairs, so him and their trainer Katerina go to see what it is, tell the kids to hide. They then gets revealed that, hey, this is Sebastian and his armies. So the kids are told, get to the office, call Idris, get a portal out of here. So Emma and Julian have to go through to round up all the 5 Blackthorn kids. Tavi, Drew, Livia, Ty, Julian, Mark, Helen. Yeah, the 4 young ones. They have to go through, collect them. Emma's actually carrying Tavi, who's the baby, to the office, and she goes past the foyer where they see Sebastian's army forcing Katerina onto her knees to make her drink from the Dark Mortal Cup and turn her in darkened. They've already got Andrew Blackthorn, which is why I thought, Robert is going to be taking Andrew's place, but instead of in darkened, he's killed. And then Julian comes in, throws the knife at Sebastian, and takes Emma and Tavi to the office. They get portaled out just as Sebastian's army are breaking down the door. And Mark, who was with Katerina, is actually gifted from Sebastian to the Seelies because he's half Seelie. He then gets taken by the Wild Hunt, which leads into his part of the sequel series. And then when Sebastian's going through, he leads an assault on the Praetor, which I've already talked about, takes out several other institutes like he did in this episode. Then he tries to lead an attack on the Iron City, but there's already an army of there's a warning flare sent up from the Iron City. Idris responds because they think it's only a couple in darkened. They send a really unprepared army, just rushed through the portal because they want to take Sebastian out while he's away from his army. When they're there, suddenly the rest of his army appears out of seemingly nowhere. Him and Jace get into a fight. This is where we find out that if Sebastian tries to kill Jace, the heavenly fire in his veins acts as a self-defense mechanism, seeks out the closest source of demonic blood. At least I think that's what it's trying to do, because it travels up Sebastian's sword and burns him. And yeah, then Jace, this is the first time he gets consumed by the heavenly fire, and Brother Zachariah tries to help him. He gets engulfed by the flames, which then reverts him back to how he was before he became a Shadowhunter. So we get to see him before, he gets a new life, basically. And then, yeah, it's revealed at the dinner for the Downworlder representatives that, hey, actually, the Seelie Queen has been working with Sebastian this entire time. Maliorn is revealed to be a traitor because he's half Seelie, so he can lie, which is why the Queen wanted him on the council in the first place. So he leads an army of fairies through it's not actually explained how they get into Idris, but they take the council representatives through ferry into Eden, where Sebastian's got his fortress and everything. And they basically, it's like, we'll give you these representatives back if you give me Clarissa and Jace. The council's like, no, we're not trading Shadowhunter lives for these Downworlders, to show that even though they have them on the council, they still haven't changed from their ways, which is also what Sebastian was wanting, so that they wouldn't have the allies that they had in the battle with with Valentine against him. Then Emma overhears the talk about Edom, goes to where the Lightwoods are staying, and basically like, hey, my best friend's brother's half fairy, his sister's half fairy. There might be a way to get to Edom through the fairy realms. So it was Alec, Clary, Jace, Isabel, Simon go to fairy. They overhear the Sealy Queen talking with the leader of the Wild Hunt, because they don't know at this point that it was actually the Sealies who took the council representatives. They overhear her saying, we hope you like the Blackthorn boy that we've given you, to sort of strengthen the bond between the Sealy Court and the Wild Hunt. They burst in, demand to be taken to Edom. They actually kill Maliorn in that battle. On the road to Edom from the fairy realm, they run into Mark. He asks them about his siblings and tries to get home. Unfortunately, by that point, he'd already eaten some of the Wild Hunt's food, which means that he now can't leave the Wild Hunt. So basically, he's trapped in the Wild Hunt, but he knows that his family's still alive, which is a great comfort for him, because last he saw, Sebastian was invading the LA Institute where all his younger siblings were. Anyway, fast forward, I've already spoken about how the battle in Edom actually differed, with the whole Jace having the heavenly fire being consumed, it being put into a sword that Jonathan didn't know about. There's a point during the cutaways where he's seeing from Luke and Magnus's and Jocelyn's perspectives, where Magnus is dying because he's in his father's realm. His father's making him sick to hope that Magnus will call on him for a favor, and he's refusing to do that. He's locked in a cell with Raphael, and I forget the entire thing, but Raphael actually gets killed by Sebastian, and so Magnus is just left there alone while dying. Clary, Jason, that arrive at Sebastian's fortress. They free their friends, the Downworlder representatives, and that. They get to Sebastian's throne room, where now that they're here, he's actually going to close off the doorways between realms, because everyone that he wanted is here. He's got his mother, he's got his brother, he's got his sister. And meanwhile, in Alicante, the Undarkened, the fairies, and the Wild Hunt are all laying siege to Alicante. And all the kids are told to go hide in the Accords Hall. Like, you have Brother Zachariah and Helen leading the Blackthorn kids and Emma through all the battles to the Hall of Accords. Unfortunately, Helen's not allowed to go in there because she's of age and must then go off and fight. And So they're all trapped in. Just as the Endarkened are breaking down the doors of... No, after they've broken down the doors of the Holy Courts, Andrew comes forward. He tries to reach out to Ty, who is, in all but name, he's autistic. Like, it's pretty much, they don't put a name on it, but they acknowledge that, yeah, he's got everything that leads to him being autistic. So Andrew is trying to capitalize on that to draw Ty in as a hostage to use against his other kids. So just before Ty can embrace Andrew, Julian kills his father, which leads into the sequel. And then they thought all of the Endarken's life forces are tied to Sebastian. So when Clary stabs him with the angelic infused weapon, he dies. All the Endarken die. The Sealies, they're like, oh shit, our really powerful allies have just all dropped dead. Let's get out of here. So the war's ended. But there's no way for Clary Jason that to get through back to Earth because Sebastian severed the link. So Magnus calls upon Asmodeus, the only time we see him in the books, well, at least the first series, and he's like, can you get us back home? And Asmodeus is like, sure. It'll cost you though. And he asks for Magnus's immortality. And this is where we find out that if Magnus loses his immortality, his age will catch up to him and he'll die. Which Alec didn't know that piece of information when in book 5 he was trying to remove Magnus's immortality so they could grow old together. And yeah, so Simon actually says, hey, I'm immortal. I've only been immortal for a couple of years. Why don't you just take mine? And Asmodeus accepts the gift. But because Simon's immortality is from him being a vampire, and before that he was a mundane, he'll revert him back to a mundane. But he loses all his memories of the Shadow World. And so they get sent through. You've got the scene of Clary and Jocelyn mourning the white-haired boy with green eyes who could have been. And then, hang on, just need to. Afterwards, there's a giant council meeting where they're trying to discuss what is to be done with the fair folk because, well, they betrayed them. And so they've reached out to representatives from the Seelie and the Unseelie Court. The Unseelie Court did not send anyone to represent them, so they're written off immediately. And Carly, she's actually the representative for the Seelie Court. And so the council, basically, the Inquisitor, who is Robert Lightwood, says, you need to pay for all the damages done by the war. You've got to pay reparations to those who lost loved ones in the war. You must give up all your weapons, and you can now no longer train your people in an army. Basically, the exact same thing that the Allies did to Germany after World War One, and we saw how well that worked out. And Magnus, he actually brings up, hey, humans have tried to do this multiple times in the past, and it has never worked out well. He doesn't bring up World War One. He brings up an ancient civilization who had this done to them, and then generations down the line, would eventually go on and destroy the the city who inflicted it on them. And he's like, the fair folk are a long-lived and long-memoried people. They will not forget this. Oh yeah, another stipulation is the Clave will now no longer help fair folk in need. Basically, they're on their own and they can't have like any weapons or anything. So, yeah, this creates what is referred to in the story as the Cold Peace. Yes, it is that on the nose. Which leads into the sequel series. And then, in the final parts of the council meeting, they're like, what do we do with people who are half downworlder? Like, we saw what happened when we had a half Seelie on the council. How can we trust anyone who is like half Shadowhunter, half downworlder to side with the Shadowhunters when, like, if it comes to it? And they're specifically talking about Helen, because she's dating the consul's daughter. And Helen's like, I literally just fought with you against my blood's people to protect it. How can you have any questions about this? And they're like, well, it's in the fairy's nature to serve their best interest. How do we know in the future you won't turn on us? And Gia is in a really hard spot, because normally she would fight against that, but because this is her daughter's girlfriend, any attempts to do so would be seen as favoritism, and that would be grounds for her to be taken out. So she confers with Robert, and basically what the council wants is for her to be stripped of all her runes and just outcast from Shadowhunter society. What Gia instead gets is she is to be stationed indefinitely on Wrangel Islands to oversee the wards which protect the entire world. Basically, she's permanently banished, but she's still a Shadowhunter. And Elaine goes with her to Wrangel Island. They get married and everything. And then the sequel series is all about the Blackthorns. And it all stems from, well, one side, Sebastian's side. They took our brother from us. They handed him over to the Wild Hunt and basically stole a part of our family. But the Clave, they're responsible for our sister being taken from us and banished to a place where we can't get it. Both sides of the war did the exact same thing in the eyes of the Blackthorns, which is why when the Wild Hunt comes to the Blackthorn with a ask for help and offer to give Mark back, the Blackthorn kid go against the Clave, because the Blackthorn motto is a bad law is no law, because they're making fun of the Clave's motto of the law is hard, but it is the law. And they brought elements of a lot of that into this, except for the battle that was in Alicante, because that was pretty much all set up for the Blackthorns, except for it was also potentially going to destroy the Nephilim race. And they changed it so that the battle in Edom with the heavenly fire and everything was against Lilith, and Clary goes on her own to battle Jonathan. He still dies in pretty much the exact way, being consumed by angelic power. And instead of it being Simon who gives up his memories of the Shadow World, it's Clary. Because there is actually an epilogue of the story. I'm pretty sure it is Alec and Magnus's wedding. Or it could have been Luke and Jocelyn's. I can't remember which one. Where Isabel is basically doing what Jace is doing, where she's overlooking Simon to make sure that he's okay. Magnus shows up and he's got books of magic. He's like, "Are you sure there isn't anything we can do?" And he's saying no. All we can do is hope that maybe his memory break through. And, well, Simon actually comes up to talk to them because he feels a weird pull to them. I think that's what it is. Basically, same as what happened with Clary. And then he talks with Isabel for a little. And then he's like, "Hey, you should come see my band. We're performing tonight." And he's renamed his band because that's a running gag throughout the whole story of every time the band's spoken about, it's a different name. And the final rename it's called the Mortal Instruments. And that gives Isabel hope. So her and Magnus just appears out of thin air for Simon. And like, "Hey, you should come with us." And then, Simon does get his memories back. He shows up at the wedding. It is Luke and Jocelyn's. Like, he's shown up at the wedding as Isabel's date. He remembers some things. Like, his memory's coming back quickly. But he still doesn't really remember all the people that are there. And then, after that, he actually is in the first batch of people who become the new Ascended and is sent to the Shadowhunter Academy. He becomes parabatai with Clary, and the only reason that they're allowed to become parabatai at the age they are is because they saved the world twice. Isabel never gets a parabatai. By the time we first meet her, she's already too old to go through the ceremony. But, so the last few episodes, the one thing that I've been saying, I'm not going to touch on this, I'm not going to touch on this, I'm not going to touch on, whenever I'm doing my explanations, is the Undarkened. Because I did not think that anything related to that was going to be shown. But as soon as they showed Sebastian going through, taking out all the institutes, specifically showcasing the LA Institute, they could have had Robert posted up anywhere else. I don't remember it being said before now that he was at the LA Institute. It could have been anywhere else. But they specifically did that so they could, as closely as possible, mirror the scene from the start of book 6. I figured that was fair game. But yeah, as I said, Maliorn survives the series, even though he dies in the book. Raphael survived the series, even though he dies in the book. The Sealy Queen dies in this, but she survived in the book. Jocelyn dies in this, but she survives in the book. Max dies in book 3. He's killed by Sebastian. And he survives to the end of this. Luke is a Shadowhunter again. Alex the Inquisitor instead of Robert. Because I'm pretty sure the sequel picks up 5 years, I want to say, after. No, No, it's only 3. Right, because it ends. The main series ends in 2009. The sequel picks up 2012. Yeah. So Robert was Inquisitor for like, I want to say 4 years by that point. Because he's still Inquisitor at the end there. And, yeah. So, really, this show did bring in a lot more of the book than I thought it was going to. It brought in a lot more than my dad knows, because I'm pretty sure he stopped watching at the end of season 3. And yet, season 4 is where they draw so much from, like, they're basically running parallel. They're not, like, perfect, but they're at least on the same trajectory. And I just find that ironic that he stopped watching just before it went to what he would have preferred the whole series be, which is running parallel. But, yeah, anyway, I know most people aren't going to sit through my entire comparison of what happened in book 6. But, yeah, I basically explained the major parts of all of the books now in this reaction series. And I thought that a big chunk of the ending arc wasn't going to be touched on, so I am glad. I also really liked it. The characters were all good. Like, there were a couple things. What the fuck ever happened to Kane? Like, I just jumped back onto Netflix and was scrolling through the this arc, this season, looking at all of the episodes and all of that. And I got to Stay With Me. I'm like, Lilith left with Kane. He still had the mark, so he couldn't be killed by her or anything. She said she was going to reunite him with his brother. And yet, nothing ever came to that. I wonder. Okay. I googled Shadowhunters, what happened to Kane, and first comes up with Lilith was then transported away to escape with Kane. What happened to Kane after this is unknown, although it can be assumed that Lilith did not hold up her end of the deal and Kane returned to the sewers. Cool. It also doesn't explain how Lilith got back to Edom after she escaped. I assumed she just used her magic, but yeah. But anyway, I'm going to end this one here. I don't know what show I'm going to be picking up with, but yeah, I guess with that being said, I'll catch you on the next one.